Good morning, guys. Today is the 5th of February 2017. I'm going to be going over some trade ideas for this week, some stuff that I would be looking at into this week for some setups. Obviously, remember, these are just ideas, and so you have to allow the charts to come into play, and if they fail to stay in formation that you want them to be in, if the reason that you got into the trade it negates itself, then obviously you have to let it go. I'm looking at CSC coming into this week. I think that the chart has more room to the upside, but I would like to see a pullback into the $67 and let's just call it a round number 67.50 range. So I would like to see the chart come back during this week into that range, where then I can take it long and possibly a hold into a new high. So CSC is something that I'd be looking at into this week, and obviously I have to wait for the chart to set up in order to take that trade. Here's a little one, Mvis. So the chart has tested its 200 SMA before. Now it's making higher lows and came back and closed over its 200 SMA. So I'm interested in seeing if this chart has potential for more upside, and what I'd like to do is, well, I'd obviously like to see it come back and hold this range. So this was a pivot breakout here, showed some resistance, almost pretty much a head and shoulder here. And so what I'd like to see is the chart pull back down to this 164, 165 range. If it can hold, then obviously we'd be using the 200 SMA as a reason to stay into it for any further upside move. Obviously the targeted breakout would come here at about 185, where then you would look for support there and the possibility of it going higher. Nlsn. Here's a chart that's curling up. Chart broke the immediate downtrend. Couple buyers coming in. Earnings is coming up. So if you are playing into this one, obviously make sure that you are make sure that you're understanding that you're not trying to hold into earnings. So what I would like to see is, I would like to see the chart pull back into this support range, the same trend that it broke out of before. I'd like to see it pull back into this range, putting me at about a $42 buy area, and try to see if you get the break over 42.56 for a test of that 50 EMA. Now if it goes over the 50 EMA, then this is where it gets interesting, because if it goes over the 50 EMA, it does have room up to about $43.50. So Nlsn is something that you could look at for a possible play into this week. Sgen is something that I'm also looking at. Chart has filled its entire gap. Earnings is also coming up on this one. It's kind of hard to find charts that are working right now that doesn't have earnings either coming up or just passed. So we are in earnings season, so most of these charts do have earnings either coming up or just passed. So for right now in Sgen, the chart's breaking out of this range here, which have pretty much held it back for the while. So what you'd look at is this ultimate breakout area here, which is the resistance from the 2 wicks. The chart have come up to it before and got rejected. A close over it leaves me to the upside. And so what I'd like to do is, I'd like to see obviously a pullback to this range, right about $60.75, a break over that pivot high, and then try to see if a chart can come into the $64 range. So that's SG, and all of this stuff obviously you'd like to happen before earnings, because it's not something that I don't like to hold into earnings. I don't like to predict those moves, so I probably won't be holding it even if I do play it. Clls chart broke over into a new upside here, so obviously we'd be looking for a quick pullback to $19.60, where it would retest the same trend that it broke over. Increased volume for the range that the chart trades, so I like this to see more upside potential. Pull back down here to the $19.60 range gives you a potential for more upside. Add over the high from Friday should put you into a decent scenario. VRX chart came. Okay, I gotta hold on. All right. So what could be happening here, if you can really kind of open your eyes to the potential of what's happening, is I would like to see what could be an inverted head and shoulder move. So what I'm looking for is I would like to see the chart pull back into this range, giving me this sort of support. So a pullback down into this little range here could give me a potential support. We do have a downtrend that was broken, and if you look carefully, this is the downtrend here that was broken. Now we just like to see if that range can hold. So as for the potential outcome of the trade, I think there's a possibility that something can happen here if we allow the charts to set up for us. So for me, I'd be looking for a little pullback, a little downside into here, where we can risk this small uptrend and see if there's something out of this potential move here that we can work with. So I do like VRX, and I possibly will most likely be playing it as long as the chart gives me the entry that I want, and then I can manage that pivot low at the base for exiting the trade. Here's lows. I like lows. I like the fact that the chart is supporting at the 50 EMA. We broke under it before, and now we came back to the top side. Chart played around with it for a little bit, and now came back down to it with a strong candle support. So I like lows for a little bit more upside. I think we can get a nice continuation to the upside on this one. Small pullback, maybe to $72.80 should get you that area of interest for a long. And obviously the 200 SMA sits here at 75 bucks basically, and that'll give you the reason to hold it if the chart was to break over. OXY charts flagging. I feel like we can get a little bit more upside obviously into earnings again. We have a nice trend line breakout on this one, and so now that it's breaking the immediate downside, I think we can get a little bit of upside to it. Doesn't have to be a huge move to be a profitable move, as long as you're in the right time when the chart moves. So what I'd like to see is I'd like to see a snap pullback on this one. As long as the chart can hold, there's a possibility here. If you're looking at the chart carefully, you would see that there's a possibility for an inverted head and shoulder play. So obviously you'd have to wait for your setups to come. But here's the inverted head and shoulder, and so there's the support range off the shoulder, and here's the break to the upside. Only thing is earnings is you know kind of not where I would like it to be. I would play this chart on the long side if earnings wasn't right around the corner, and so with earnings being on the 9th, I feel like I can play it into earnings using this inverted head and shoulder, but I don't like to hold into earnings again. Otherwise, if this wasn't the earnings coming up into play, this is a setup that I would very much be long into. So you can play it for the potential of it working off of that formation, but try not to hold it into earnings, as you know sometimes that's a riskier setup. KMI is setting up here. This is a very clean movement so far. Charts obviously making a higher low as it's working. We obviously have the main downtrend that was broken here, the retest to it, and now the chart's starting to make its way up to the upside. So what we have going on is obviously chart came up to what could be a head and shoulder pattern. So what do you need to do? Well, you need the chart to break over that shoulder to show you that that shoulder is not going to be a problem. Because if obviously you're buying into that shoulder, then that doesn't put you into a good long scenario. You can actually get a drastic pullback off of that range. So what I would wait for is I would wait for the chart to push over. It would probably want to come up and retest this high area here at about $23.36. So it would probably want to come up to that area, pull back to the shoulder. You have to make sure that the shoulder holds for support, and then I would definitely feel like a long would be a comfortable area there to play. Cree, C-R-E-E. I like the fact that the chart popped and it pulled back, holding support at the 8 and the 13 EMA. So I'm pretty much long biased on this one, and a position into this chart for me would need to have the uptrend hold as for a reason, And so for me right now, this provides a possible swing position on any pullback, obviously risking to the trend. So those are the 10 that I have on this week's list. There are probably hundreds of other charts that you can find along the way that probably have better setups, but I can't go through 100 of them a week. So these are the 10 that I've chosen, and I do hope that there's a probability or potential that you can make some coin off of these charts. And for those of you guys that don't follow me, it's at ICEMAN Trading. There you'll find links to pretty much everything that I do, YouTube videos. If you're interested in trading with me at ICEMAN Trading Academy, just hit me an email or send me a direct message, and we'll take care of you from there. Thank you. Have a great and safe week.